That way I don't forget it later. Thanks everyone for dialing in. I know it's a couple more minutes and we'll wait a couple more before we go into the official agenda for this, but I appreciate you all joining on really relatively short notice. We've been working on a handful of some of these enhancements and new functions over the last month or so, and we finally got to the point where we felt comfortable in moving everything into the production environment. And so at the same time as we moved this, we figured there was enough change that you will see on the screens that we probably ought to explain at least what was going on, what we've introduced, some things that we've fixed, and just what was going on. So appreciate your joining on short notice. And we will record this so that if there's anybody else at your organizations that wanted to catch up and see what did they do, then they can watch the replay part of this as well. I see just about everybody is on mute, but I would ask you to unmute before we get started to either say your hellos or if you have any questions before we go into the meeting. So it's open mic time if you have any initial questions.
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you all for participating. We really appreciate your input. And are always looking to improve and make changes so that it will facilitate the work that you all have to do. I appreciate your all's involvement very much.
Thanks, Allison. By the way, I think I've probably talked to just about everybody on the phone here right now, but my name is Rich Miller, and I'm working on the KEPRS, have been working on the KEPRS project for about 4 years at this point. So I want to, again, welcome everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with the agenda. And yeah, just first of all, the welcoming page, what you will see when you sign on. And so let me back up to if you started back at your, once you sign into your KEPRS environment, once you select KEPRS, we've introduced a new landing page. So that's the first thing you'll notice when you sign into KEPRS. We have maintained the old drop downs as well. So if you hover over the home tab, you'll still see all of the applications that you used to see in KEPRS, and same thing with reporting. So if you're familiar with and comfortable with making these selections, that's fine. But we've added a graphical, more graphical set of icons below that allow you to get to the same applications like the profile, contacts, permissions, requesting a new program, submitting a program for review, and this one is new, and then closing a program. And all this whole row here is all about really program administration. So we put these all in the same row. And you do have to have certain rights and authority in order to run these particular applications. The new program request has been around for a while, but the submit review request is new. So if you haven't been on here recently, this is a new one that has been added so that you can formally notify OELE, or the old EPSB, that you have completed your data entry work on a new program. So currently this will only allow you to submit a new program for a formal review. Because once you've done the new program request and you've had some dialogue with Allison about the types of codes and the routes and other options or the attributes you may have, you may be spending another 1, 2, 3, 4 months getting that information into KEPRS, and we don't know exactly when you've completed that work. This allows you to notify us formally, we're done, we're ready for review, and you kind of put it on the docket. When you complete this step, and let's take a quick look at this one. I'll bring it up in the test environment. Basically, when you've completed this particular step, what you'll get is an email confirmation back to the person who submitted the request, and also goes to Allison. So if I click on the category, okay, so when I copied this information for Asbury, they had an outstanding school principal and supervisor of instruction program waiting for a review. So I would collect school program. In fact, I could also say supervisor of instruction. And then I pick the codes and I can say, well, I'm going to select them all. And then by clicking this box, I confirm that these programs have been submitted to OELE. I've got all the data gathering work is now completed in KEPRS, and I hit submit.
Rich, I have a question for you.
Yep.
All of our advanced educational leadership programs are having to update their information and put it into KEPRS. Will this work for them, or is it only a new program?
Only at this time, only a new program. Eve, let's talk about that to see if there's a particular group. Are they all going to require a review?
Yes.
And do you already?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
It requires a staff review and content review, not necessarily a program review.
Okay, and do you have a varying number of deadlines, or is everybody working with the same deadline?
It's going to be varying dependent on when the EPP gets their information.
Okay, well, let's talk about that offline and see if there isn't something we can do to bring them into that same process. Okay. I'll go back to the main page. And by the way, I did notice something this weekend when I was playing around with this. There may be some minor adjustments we can make to this main screen, because right now I've got my screen at 100%. And I'm 65 years old this year, and my eyes aren't quite what they used to be. And sometimes I expand this screen so that I can see it in larger print. And if you do that, some of these icons run off to the right-hand side. So if you open this landing page and you only see the first 4, then you'll need to bring your screen back to 100% so that you see all of the icons. And we're going to look at doing something with either wrapping this around or shrinking it so that as we use smaller percentages, you can still see the whole screen. Okay. Any questions so far? This is the easy stuff. Just for your information, the What's New tab that's in red with a little medallion here, if you click on that, you will get a recently updated version of the user's guide. So if you really want to drill down into some of the details, the user's guide has got screenshot by screenshot, and most of the fields are pretty well laid out and defined and how it works and how the processes work. So this has been updated, and if you don't have a recent copy of this, you may want to click on that and take a look and make sure that you're up to date on the user guide or the technical guide. Okay. Also, you may notice as you go through some of these applications that there's now a wider view. Some of these views, as you looked at them, were kind of shrunk down and kind of centered in the middle of the screen. So we've tried to make better use of the entire width of the screen and also on the entire length. So if you're looking at things like courses or clinical faculty, where you had 20, 30, 40, 60, or 100, we tried to expand the scrolling ability of each window so that you could see more and more of the information without having to change pages. And we're just hoping that makes it a little bit easier for everyone to get at the data or update the data without having to change pages. Okay. Let me go down to the program design set of applications, and let me go back and kind of review for some of those who did not catch the last call of some of the updates we made on the courses. Really not functional changes, but we changed some of the tabs across the top. So when you come to the first page on courses, it used to show a very long list of all of your courses, and frequently this would take quite a while for the system come back and fetch all that data and put it into the screen. So now you get a little bit of a faster response here because the first tab is just to add a new course. So nothing has changed here in terms of the fields of information that you key in. It's just that this is now a dedicated data entry screen for courses. So if I go to the second tab, I look at View and Edit Courses. This will quickly bring up just a viewable screen, and I can either view all courses, which will take a little while, or I can select a prefix. So in this case, and again, I'm looking at Asbury test data right now. If I pick up just EDG, then it will filter for just those courses. And it does take a little bit of time, not quite as long as what it used to. But now I can filter and work with just those specific courses. So now I'm getting a view of just the EDG courses. The link courses to programs basically works the same way. At the bottom of the grid, you have all of the links for each course to the program codes. And at the top, you can set up a new link for the code and the course. The fourth tab is a new tab as well, and it's dedicated for the data entry of adding your standards, your standard alignment for the course. And then the final tab is to view all of the courses and all of the alignments. And we did add a feature here because some folks were saying, well, you know what, I've got a group of aligned standards that I'd like to delete all at one time. And every time I hit delete, it takes 10, 15 seconds to refresh the screen. I hit another delete and it takes another 10, 15 seconds. You can filter this view to whatever you like and then say remove all. So that cuts down somewhat on some of the maintenance time. If you're going back and doing mass deletes because either a standard has changed or you've changed the courses or a course no longer exists, this is a little bit faster way of removing groups of aligned standards from the courses. So that's kind of a review of what we covered in the previous call. So at this point, let me stop and ask if there are any questions on the courses set of tabs.
Rich, I have a question.
Yeah.
This is Allison, by the way. Okay, with the red button, if it is hit accidentally and things get removed that they realize, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Is there a protocol or a procedure by which they contact us and say, I made a mistake, these were deleted accidentally, can we get them reloaded?
Well, let me do that as an example. Let me take LDG 712. So let me go in here and filter for LDG 712. I'll filter on that. This ideally, I understand your question. Ideally, you would want to filter this down because you could have thousands of these, and now I've just got 39. Let's say LDG 712 no longer exists. We've replaced it with a whole new curriculum, and this one just needs to go away. Not that the standards are outdated, but the course is outdated. So if I say remove all, we come back with a warning, and hopefully this addresses part of your question. It says, are you sure you want to delete all the records? And I'll say, okay. And it's going to remove all the LDG 712 courses. They are gone. Actually in the system, it puts an end date on it and they are gone from view. But to answer your question, if you've done this and you now say, oh my goodness, that's the wrong one, then your only recourse would be to call EPSB and ask for a, kind of a data recovery of your courses, and that would take some time. So there is nothing you can do as a user to magically bring these back. Once you've undated or removed them, they are gone. They are end dated in the system, and it would require a database person from EPSB to bring them back.
Okay, Rich, I have another question.
Yep.
Okay. So a lot of times course prefixes and numbers remain the same over years at a time.
Okay.
But the curriculum within those courses may change
Yep.
and may change from one year to the next.
Uh-huh.
Okay. When that happens, or if assessments change, is what would be the process to take that same course and not delete the course, but realign the information to that same code?
Okay. Part of your conversation was you mentioned assessments, and this does nothing with assessments. That's a separate module. But to your point of the course alignment to certain standard components, you would have to kind of lay out what the changes are. So for example, if in the superintendent PESEL standard, I've got 3D here, and I know that it no longer addresses 3D or 3E or any of the threes, and I want to remove those, then I could go into this by component, starts with 3D, filter those, and I could remove that group. Now, if I've added it, then I have to go back to align courses to standards, and I would have to add, if you're replacing 3E with 3D, this is how you would do it. There'd be a couple of steps. So maybe we ought to take some time in a future Zoom call and focus some time on the process for changing and updating your aligned standards. Did I answer the question?
For now.
Yep, because this is going to go on all the time. I mean, and we know this, when standards get updated every 3, 5, 7 years or whatever, frequently they use the same number structure, but also they change them. You get new ones, and this would have to be maintained.
Rich, this is Christopher over at UK. So what you're basically saying here is that we can use these 4 kind of filtering things to get different kinds of lists, and that'll allow us to delete standards or a group of standards or a particular standard from a course or a group of courses or whatever, and then we would have to go back. But it would still be that 2-step process. But this looks like it would make it easier rather than having to go through the entire list of standards and indicators to try to ferret them out. This makes it easier to get your list down.
Yeah, and if I understand you, and your voice is coming through kind of tinny and scrambled, but I think I understand the comment. In this example with just the PESEL, it's probably a small group of standards and components. But if you look at your initial groups, most of your programs are initials, and this list could get to be thousands and thousands of line items long. So the more that you can group by any one of these fields, if it's by the component title, the course, or the standards, or the standard group set, then the more efficient it will be when you do a remove all. And the remove all will delete everything in your view. So like if you were to filter on just PESEL and say remove all, it would remove all of the PESEL standards that you had in that view. And you could have several hundred.
Rich, I have a question.
Yep.
Okay, when the state changes standards, for instance, we went from ISLIC and TSSA to PESEL.
Yep.
Is there any way that you can just at the state level take those standards out?
Yes.
Okay, so you all are going to do that.
Yes. But there's a timeline on that. So the ISLIC and TSSA are still valid to a certain deadline, and so we do have an end date in the system that says, at some future point, say it's September 15th of 2021, these standards are no longer valid. And
So
then
then they won't appear.
they will disappear. Yes, they will
Okay.
disappear. Yep.
Let me ask you this, because right now they're still both in there.
Yep.
And ISLIC pops up first.
Yep.
Is there any way to make P-Cell pop up first? It would just
I hear
save
ya.
time.
I
I mean,
hear
because
ya.
every single time you go in to add anything, ISLIC pops up first and you have to go. I mean, it would save some clicks.
I like that. And I'm assuming that the only reason it does that is because it's alphabetical, and this just appears alphabetically first in that list. So let me ask, and it kind of makes sense because PESEL is, I mean, that is the preferred standard. If you're doing anything, it's supposed to be in PESEL. So I like that.
I have a quick question, Rich.
Yep.
You're putting LDG 712 back, right?
This is in test.
Okay. Oh, lovely. Minor heart attacks over here.
The people in Asbury are having a heart attack. I'm sorry. I'm in a test environment. This is not production.
You're not wrong.
Oh my, I'm sorry. I should have said that earlier. Poor Asbury. All right. Let me go back to the KEPRS home screen. And
Rich, let me just point out that currently in our system, the ISLIC standards were ended of July the 4th, 2019. So any programs that were in the system prior to that time would show the ISLIC standards. All right. So you no longer align to them, but they're going to show in the history. Rich, is there a process when we end date those standards that they disappear from view entirely? They're no longer one that you select to align with, but in the inventory view.
I'll have to go back and look at that because I thought that we had set this up that if we've gone beyond the end date,
correct,
those standards should not appear.
Okay, so I just kind of wanted to double check with Lisa then. So in the system, when you all look at your EdAdmin programs, are you still seeing ISLIC standards? Because according to us, those ISLIC standards were dated in 2019 in July. So
I haven't entered new courses for a couple of weeks, but the last time I was in there, because you know, I was putting in P-cell standards. I'm trying to, I was still seeing, because it was the dose program. It's, you know, when I'm putting those courses in, I was still seeing the ISLIC listed, and it was still a choice. It was like the first choice. And
okay.
Well, I think it was. I think it was. I don't know. I've been very recently. I've seen since July 4th of 2019. I've seen them. I can't remember, like, because I've been putting stuff in since then.
Right.
I just don't know.
Okay.
I just looked right now in ours. This is Christopher again over at UK, and it just, if you put in school principal as the category for aligning courses standards, it just shows the PESEL standards.
Okay.
It does not show ISLIC.
Okay. Yeah, I'll double check that for Campbellsville. I'm just making a note that they should not appear because I can see the end date in the standards table. That's the 4th item I gotta look up. Got it. All right. Now let me go into the assessments just for a little bit because there were some interesting things going on here that we have now fixed. And so if you've got a list of assessments, and in this case, the information that I copied out of Asbury, they got quite a few, very extensive, very well done. They've got groups and their areas are aligned, and they've explained each one of these. So there's a wealth of information in here. Oh, that's Georgetown. Let me go over to Asbury because I don't want to be playing around in production with Georgetown. There we go. 6 items. So, and these all say test, test, test on them. You can tell that we're doing some work in there. And let me take the simple test view and do an edit and show you what we were working with. If you did in the past, if you did a copy and you were going to do create a new assessment, let me go through this. New assessment, I'll say rich copy test. And I'm going to copy this in from, let's go rich test 2. I copy it in, and it's a principal group. And I say, well, you know, this is a very generic assessment. I had it lined up for principal. Actually, I'm going to use it for the initial group now. Now we pop up a little bit of a warning that says, if you change the assessment group, the programs and alignment associated with this assessment are deleted. Are you sure you want to change assessment group? And I say, yeah, I'm going to change it because it's a whole different set of criteria. So now I've created a new assessment, and I'm going to call it, I'll call it Rich Test 3. And I've chosen the initial group, and I'm going to choose application of content knowledge. I'm going to say, you know, this is new for test 3, or whatever my explanations are. In the past, what had happened is some of this information from the prior principal group was copied in. And so we have some data issues that we will get back with you all as to how we resolve that, because it copied everything forward. So now if I go next, instead of principal, I said initial, and this shows me all of my initial programs. Now, we're still working on removing the option 9, so your proficiency routes will not be shown here because it's basically a duplication of work you've already done. So we haven't quite gotten that done yet, but we are working on it. So at this point, I'm going to say, okay, initial art, both programs. Oops, I don't need the option 9. Biological science. I'll pick a few of my codes just to demonstrate how these are showing up. And then down below, I begin to build that grid view of what I have linked this assessment to. So I've picked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these. Now, so we've tried to coordinate a little bit better between what you see in the grid view and what you've picked in the selection view up above. So if I unselect or unclick elementary, it disappears from both. And previously, these were not coordinated, and it was difficult to see what you were changing and what you were working with. So again, if you click here, it appears below. If you unclick, it removes it from below. Also, if you click here and select, and you come down below and you're looking at this list and you say, well, no, I don't want elementary. You can delete it. And it also removes the check mark from your selection view. So I'm hoping this kind of makes sense as to where you click for your selection and where they appear down below. And then also, if you uncheck or delete a line item, it does it all in the same view. And some of this was not very well coordinated before, but it's much better now. Okay, so I've taken my assessment and now I've linked it to these particular program codes. I go to my next step. And now I need to pick which code I'm going to align the standards to. So let's pick Art Traditional, and it's KTPS because that's the only one that you can choose from. And again, as I pick these standards, they will appear in the grid view down below. Okay. So now I've built a list of 1, 2, 3, 4 of the aligned standards to this assessment. Now this is kind of an advanced topic thing, but if you want to come back up here and pick another program code, you can. I'm going to switch from art to biological science, and it's the same KTPS because we are in the initial group. And I can pick 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see down below, in addition to art, I've now added biological science. 1, 2, 3, 4. I can go back up, pick another code. Let's go with English, and I'll pick 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I've got English, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now again, I can delete these, I can add these, and this was the best way we could think of at the time to help coordinate how you pick the code and align them to the standards for this assessment. And as always, this is not saved in the system until you say save and exit. Once you say save and exit, you should get a response saying the assessment is saved successfully. You say okay, and it takes you back to your assessment screen, and you can see here that I've added Rich Test 3, which I had copied from Rich Test 2. I changed the group from principal to initial. I picked my area, and then I went in and did my alignment and my linking to the programs. Now, there were some errors in there as to some of the groups that got duplicated, as I mentioned before, so we've got to do a little bit of homework here and looking at how much that data impact is and how much we can correct from here at EPSB without you having to intervene, and we will lay out a plan and get that to you here shortly. That might have been a bit confusing. I hope not, but please, if there are questions, let's open up the mic and see if there are any questions on the assessments module at this time.
Rich, I just
Yep.
went into our KEPRS page, and Campbellsville still has ISLIC and everything. So
Yeah, you'll see it's got linked to like initial, principal, and probably ed admin. Did you do a copy? Because I suspect the way that this happened was when people did the copy, it was copying all of the program links and all the alignment codes in the background, and you didn't see it. You would not have seen this going on. And so now when we've updated the view of this information, you're now seeing information in the system that you didn't see before. You're probably seeing a lot of additional programs and or standards that you're thinking, wait a minute, I didn't pick these. And we got to figure out how to get that all corrected. Was that Lisa?
it's Lisa, yeah. So but there's something you can do so that I'm not seeing ISLIC and
Yes.
okay.
And Lisa, just so that you know, from my view, from the reviewer's side of things, ISLIC doesn't show up at all.
Okay. Well, ISLIC, TSSA, all of it's showing up.
It's showing up from your
my
view.
Yes.
Institutionally, it's showing up, but from the reviewer's side of things, we're only seeing the PSEL. Okay, that makes sense.
That's a data issue that we've got to figure out how to get it. Get it fixed. And Lisa, you're actually in the assessments module, right?
Wait a minute.
You're not in the program inventory.
I am in.
Yeah, you're probably in assessments.
I'm in view, delete course standards.
Oh, you're in the course standards.
Yeah, and I mean they're all listed here, like ISLIC, TSSA. Those are the two that are not that shouldn't be showing up.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounds like what Lisa's from the institution side of the view, it's showing the entire history.
Yep.
Where if we could figure out a way to, when we end date, that they disappear from view. They're not erased from the history, but they just disappear from the views.
Yeah, I thought we had that hidden from view, but every now and then they pop back up. So I gotta go back and revisit that one.
Now I will say now P-Cell is only popping up as for me to select.
Ah,
It's only P-Cell. When I click on select, it's only P-Cell now. But
okay.
all the rest of them are just all mixed. It's all mixed in.
And that's in the courses module?
Yes, courses. Yes, courses and standards is what it says.
Okay. We'll take a look at that. Campbellsville. Okay. Now, the last module that I'd like to talk about with you all is the program inventory. And what I discovered this morning, and I apologize, I didn't test this over the weekend because we rolled this all out into production. Your program inventory view is probably not working. And the reason for that is we have a conflict in the rights. When I sign into KEPRS, I've got super user rights. So I can look at any one of the EPPs and pick any one of the categories. You cannot. I mean, you should be seeing only your institution's information. So we had a conflict in the rights this morning, and we're working on getting that fixed. So you will not see what I'm showing you right now in the test system. So let me show you in test what you will see once we get these conflicts resolved on the rights. So when you go into the inventory, you won't be able to pick the university like I can. You will only see your particular EPP that you have the rights for. We've changed how you see the category. We used to have this big long navigation screen down the left-hand column, which made things a little bit confusing because you had to press on twisties and press on the category and press on the code. And it just made it viewing the data a little bit complicated. So now you will pick the category as you go. So let me just go ahead and stay with art for Asbury. And then let me look at the clinical educators. So here are the clinical educators for art. Let me go to courses, and now it will ask me for the codes because the courses are unique to the program code. So I'll go in and say, okay, this is code 2, art, traditional, initial undergraduate, and now I get the courses just for that one particular code. The same is true for the assessments. As I go to assessments, it'll show me all of those that are aligned with art, but I really need to pick the code if I want to see those that were unique or specific to that particular program code. Now, if I say, well, let me go back and look at chemistry. Okay, well, which code in chemistry? Well, it's just Rich Test 3 is used in chemistry. Well, what about 510 chemistry? Well, there are no assessments aligned to it. So you can see there's going to be a difference in the assessments depending on the code that you pick. Same thing with standards. I'm not sure I set up anything at Asbury that way. Let me go back to art. Select a code, 2. I think I set up assessments. Here we go. I've got assessments set up. So in your inventory view, you can switch between your standards view for either assessments or for the courses. And also with responses, again, you'll need to pick the particular code, pick your section, and then the year of the information that you're looking at. And then you'll have your questions and answers in your inventory view. So we've changed not so much the tabs, but we've changed the navigation into the information. So you will pick a category, and when required, it will ask you for the program code. The other thing we've added, and I hope some of you have asked for this in the past, we just couldn't get to it, was for the ability for you to export to Excel. So if you wanted to, provide this to others in your departments or whatever to take a look at and add their responses to it, we've now given you the ability of taking this to an Excel spreadsheet. So here we have now we provide you with both the questions and the answers for that grid view. And that just might make it a little bit easier for you to communicate and send this out rather than everybody having to be online and looking at your inventory view, et cetera, et cetera. So this makes it a little bit easier to distribute the questions. Okay. And with that, I'll take a pause and see if there are any questions on the program inventory view. Everybody's hungry. Oh, a much larger group. We have about 20 people on here today. That's good. All right, outside of inventory view, that's really about all that I had planned to cover in today's call. Let me just open it up for any topic regarding the KEPRS system.
I have a question, Rich. When you're in, as we're entering our programs, they're like, a lot of the programs have the same questions. Is there a way to save from program to program if the response is the same? Let me give you an example. All of our option 6 programs have the same responses to the option 6 questions. Is there a way, but like we have, right now we have to enter it separately for like our principal programs or our instructional supervisor programs or our DOS programs? Is there a way you can't choose, go like if, when you click save, that's all that pops up are those particular programs. Then
Okay.
you have to go back in and choose another. And so what you end up doing is copying it and then going back to another program and pasting. You know, it just takes so much time. Whereas
Okay, well,
if all the programs that
there
have
is a way to
option
do it.
6.
There is a way to
is.
do
Good.
it. Yes, 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 yes. And I'm sorry. I feel bad because this is a training issue and I'm behind on trying to get some videos created on each one of these modules that talks about these kind of functions. So in the example, what I brought up is Asbury, biological science, clinical experiences, and I chose an option 6 question. Now you'll notice, okay, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's 6 different questions in here. And some of these, like you just said, are highly replicated. Some are not. So let me go into this one and say, this is the same answer as many of our initial programs. Okay?
Okay.
Now, in the bottom right-hand corner of every one of these questions is a save button. Okay, so I hit save. And now what I've got is I can save this to all of these other codes, but the key up here, when I click next to biological science,
it'll let
I can pick the other
program.
program.
Oh, that is great. That is so good, Rich. That is so good.
I apologize because I know you've been working so hard. Oh my
I have
gosh.
been. And I've copied and pasted around.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That is great.
Yeah, copy.
That will save a ton of time.
And then what you'll get is the long list over here, and you can copy them all over to the right-hand side. You say save responses, and boom, it goes to all of them.
Oh, that is good. Okay. It's good.
Good question.
You just made me very, very happy.
Well, this function's been out there for a little while, and again, I'm sorry. That's you know my bad on training and getting the word out there. And you know what? It's not intuitive. This is not something that you would realize or see unless you've gone up here and clicked next to this. You would never see all these others in the drop down. And you can play with this, by the way. If you've got a couple initial different type programs and you say, well, I really only want to do this in my undergraduate. This is the same answer for undergraduate. So here's initial graduate, nope. Initial graduate, nope, 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 nope. Initial undergraduate, yep. Initial undergraduate, yep. And you pick and choose what you flip over to the right-hand side, and then you say save. Boom. Makes sense? Okay. Oh, I'm glad you asked.
Me too.
Okay, well, I have used up 45 minutes of everyone's lunch hour. And again, I wanted to thank you all for participating and joining today on very, very short notice. We will save this and put it out there in the meeting place. I have about 5 action items that I'm going to work on. And then we'll send out a note and keep everybody posted. Any other questions before we end the call?
I just want to put out there how much I appreciate everybody's participation in this. And it's really helpful for us to understand from your all's perspective of having to do the work about what's working and what's not working in the system. Also, if you are getting ready to spend a lot of time in working on this for submitting either new programs or programs for your pre-accreditation review, and you want some kind of one-on-one, tutoring or support, please send me an email, and I can certainly make arrangements to meet with you or come to where you are and provide, if you've got any questions, or if it's the technical side, I'll drag Rich along with me. So thank you all.
Thanks, everyone. Have a
Thank
good Monday.
you.
You bet.